On a cold April morning in 1889, in a small, overcrowded district of London, a boy was born into poverty, uncertainty, and struggle. His name was Charles Spencer Chaplin, and no one, least of all the people around him, could have imagined that this fragile child would one day become one of the most recognizable faces in world history. Long before bright lights, roaring applause, and cinematic immortality, Charlie Chaplin was simply a homeless boy fighting to survive in a harsh world that offered him very little mercy. This is the story of how hardship shaped genius, how laughter rose from pain, and how a boy with nothing became a legend who changed the language of cinema forever. A childhood born in poverty. Charlie Chaplin's parents were entertainers, but fame and fortune never found them. His father, Charles Chaplin Sr., was a talented singer and actor, yet his career was ruined by alcoholism. His mother, Hannah Chaplin, known on stage as Lily Harley, was a gifted singer and actress who performed in music halls across London. For a brief time, the Chaplin family lived modestly, surviving on applause and small paychecks. But stability was short-lived. When Charlie was still very young, his parents separated. His father drifted further into addiction and died when Charlie was just 12. His mother's career collapsed after severe vocal problems and declining mental health made it impossible for her to perform. With no steady income and no safety net, the family sank rapidly into extreme poverty. Charlie and his older half-brother Sidney often went to bed hungry. They lived in slums, moved from one cheap lodging to another, and experienced the constant fear of eviction. Sometimes they had no home at all. At just 7 years old, Charlie experienced one of the most humiliating moments of his life. He and his brother were sent to a workhouse, a grim institution for the poor. Life there was harsh and cruel. Families were separated, children were treated like prisoners, and kindness was rare. The experience left deep emotional scars on Charlie, scars that would later surface in his films. Finding refuge on the stage. Despite the misery, the stage became Charlie's escape. One night, when his mother lost her voice during a performance, young Charlie was pushed onto the stage to sing in her place. Nervous and unprepared, he began to perform, and the audience laughed, not out of cruelty, but delight. The boy had natural charm, impeccable timing, and a gift for comedy. That moment changed everything. Charlie soon joined a children's dance troupe, touring across England. The work was exhausting, but it gave him food, shelter, and purpose. For the first time, he felt a sense of belonging. He learned discipline, observation, and the power of performance. Yet life was still unstable. His mother's mental health deteriorated further, leading to repeated hospitalizations. Charlie and Sidney were again forced into institutions, shuffled between relatives, or left to fend for themselves. Homelessness was a recurring reality, not an exception. But through it all, Charlie observed the world carefully, the poor, the broken, the forgotten. He studied how people walked, how they suffered, how they laughed to hide their pain. These observations would later form the soul of his art. From music halls to America. As a teenager, Charlie joined Fred Karno's comedy company, one of the most successful theatrical troupes in Britain. Karno's style relied heavily on physical comedy rather than words, which suited Charlie perfectly. He quickly stood out, earning praise for his expressiveness and impeccable comic instincts. In 1910, the troupe toured the United States. For Charlie, America felt like another planet, vast, energetic, and full of possibility. During a second tour in 1912, he caught the attention of film producers working for a young industry called Hollywood. In 1913, Chaplin signed a contract with Keystone Studios, earning $150 a week, more money than he had ever imagined. He was 24 years old. The birth of The Tramp. Charlie's early film roles were rough and experimental, but he quickly realized that success required more than slapstick chaos. He needed a character, someone unforgettable. That character became The Tramp. With his bowler hat, toothbrush mustache, oversized shoes, and cane, The Tramp was a walking contradiction. Poor but dignified, clumsy yet clever, comic but deeply human. He was kind in a cruel world, hopeful despite endless rejection. The Tramp was Charlie Chaplin. Audiences around the world instantly connected with the character. They laughed at his antics but also felt his loneliness. The Tramp represented the underdog, the outsider, the homeless soul searching for dignity, and that made him universal. Chaplin didn't just act, he wrote, directed, edited, and composed music for his films. His control over every detail was unprecedented. By the age of 26, he was one of the most famous people on earth. Fame without forgetting pain. Despite unimaginable success, Chaplin never forgot where he came from. His films repeatedly explored themes of poverty, injustice, and survival. He used comedy not to escape reality, but to confront it. In The Kid, 1921, Chaplin told a deeply personal story of a tramp raising an abandoned child in poverty. The film drew heavily from his own childhood and his fear of losing family to institutions. It made audiences laugh and cry. In City Lights, 1931, Chaplin portrayed love beyond wealth and status, proving that kindness mattered more than money. The final scene remains one of the most emotional moments in cinema history. Then came Modern Times, 1936, a powerful critique of industrialization, showing how machines dehumanized workers. The Tramp struggles against factory systems, unemployment, and authority, echoing Chaplin's own early battles against society's indifference. A voice against injustice. While many filmmakers avoided politics, Chaplin did the opposite. In The Great Dictator, 1940, he took a bold stand against fascism and Adolf Hitler at a time when many were afraid to speak out. Playing both a ruthless dictator and a humble Jewish barber, Chaplin delivered a final speech that shocked the world, not with comedy, but with raw humanity. It was the first time audiences heard Chaplin speak on screen. His words called for compassion, democracy, and unity. The speech remains one of the most powerful statements ever made in film history. Exile and loss. Chaplin's outspoken political views and unconventional personal life made him controversial in the United States. During the Red Scare of the 1950s, he was accused of being un-American. In 1952, while traveling to Europe, the U.S. government revoked his re-entry permit. Chaplin was effectively exiled. The boy who had once been homeless now found himself rejected by the country he helped entertain for decades. He settled in Switzerland with his wife Una O'Neill and their children. Though deeply hurt, he continued creating films, though the world had changed. Redemption and recognition. In 1972, after 20 years of exile, Chaplin was invited back to the United States to receive an honorary Academy Award. When he walked onto the stage, the audience gave him a standing ovation that lasted over 12 minutes, the longest in Oscar history. The homeless boy had finally been welcomed home. Charlie Chaplin died peacefully in 1977 at the age of 88. By then, he had transformed cinema into an art form and proven that silent films could speak louder than words. The legacy of a homeless boy. Charlie Chaplin's story is not just about fame or film. It is about resilience. He showed the world that laughter can rise from suffering, that kindness can survive cruelty, and that even the most forgotten child can leave a permanent mark on history. From the workhouses of London to the silver screens of the world, Charlie Chaplin carried his past with him, not as a burden but as a source of truth. The homeless boy never disappeared. He simply became a legend.